just gonna get this out of the way. Okay, so I'm super excited to have this opportunity to share with you today some of the knowledge to help you better understand and diagnose your pond or dugout. And why is that not working? Okay. So before we get into it, I'd like to just take a moment to tell you a little bit about my company and what we do, so that you can better understand where we're coming from. We have been in business for over almost 12 years now, and we primarily focus on remediating all types of standing waters such as lakes, lagoons, storm retention ponds, public swim ponds, even drinking water cells, and of course, backyard ponds and dugouts. We are a Safe Work certified company, and we're super proud of that. And we hold extensive environmental insurance, allowing us to safely work with water. Some of our current clients include municipalities, lakeshore committees, campgrounds, golf courses, fishery lakes, and retail customers. Many of our projects begin with an assessment where we look at the water chemistry and aquatic growth, plus the tributaries, what's draining in there, along with the riparian zone and etc., to try and get a better understanding of what is happening in that body of water, and more importantly, why. Why is it happening? We'd like to get to that root cause. Once we've gathered our data, we can determine the best treatments to get the root cause of that problem. With the knowledge that we've gained over the years through trial and error and seeing the results, we hope to provide you with an in-depth knowledge, so that, you know, with that knowledge, we can provide you or advise you, I guess, on how to diagnose and treat your ponds. In addition to Clean Water Pro, we also have an online store called pondsupply.ca, and that is used to serve our retail clients so that they can buy many of the solutions there. We've been providing assistance and products to consumers from coast to coast in Canada for several years now, and we look forward to sharing some of this information with you today. So that brings us to today's discussion: your backyard, pond, or dugout. Many of the calls and emails that we receive are pertaining to dugouts that are used for some of the following: recreation, such as swimming, or maybe paddling with a canoe or kayak, and even some folks use their jet skis in their ponds, so they like to use them as a kind of a recreational pond. Some of the ponds are used for watering livestock or for irrigating their gardens or crops. In addition to that, maybe they're used in their homes for toilets or showering, and sometimes even drinking water. And lastly, quite a few are used for like a trout pond or a fish pond, which is also quite popular as well. Although the uses are different, the problems experienced are the same. So the next few slides, I will show you some of the common problems associated with dugouts, just so that you have a better understanding. So algae. Most of you are familiar with algae, as it's quite common. There are many species. It comes in several different colors. There's green, red, brown, black, blue. They're actually quite really interesting to see and to learn about. And oh, one second, I'm gonna let somebody else in here. My apologies. Whoops. Sorry about that. Some species are good for the ecosystem in the body of water, but others, when in excess, are not. The family of blue-green algae or cyanobacteria are of particular concern, as they can have toxins associated with them, which, if ingested, can cause serious harm or even death. So if algae is abundant, especially early on in the summer or throughout the season, you may want to explore fine bubble aeration, beneficial bacteria, and a product that we call ecoboost to reduce the nutrient load in your body of water. If you reduce that nutrient load, it will in turn, basically it starves the algae. Later on in the presentation, I'll talk more about these treatment options, but for now, I'll just touch on them as we go. Oh, stop moving. So the next slide is submerged aquatic growth. Again, there are several species, some of which are invasive, which is a concern. They can really grow really quickly. Aquatic weeds are a result of high nutrients and organics in the water. And every year that they grow and die, they add to that muck level on the bottom of the pond. So each year, the muck level continues to increase and the aquatic weeds thrive, which is what I mean by the snowball effect. Weeds grow, they die, they grow again, and it's increasing that muck level at the bottom of the pond. Having a high number of aquatic weeds in the area that you swim in is not only uncomfortable, but it can also be dangerous as the weeds can wrap around your legs. If your pond is set up for fish, you do not swim in it, it may not be such a big issue to get rid of those aquatic weeds. If you are wanting to reduce the weeds in your pond, we do need to tackle the muck levels at the bottom of the pond. If we get rid of the muck, we will get rid of your weeds. So how do we do that? We have a pellative form of beneficial bacteria that we call muck away. And it works exactly where you put it. It can consume up to 12 inches of muck in just one season. And aeration is also beneficial as it adds dissolved oxygen to the body of water, which boosts the bacteria. Sorry. So this next slide is floating aquatic growth, which is also known as duckweed is one species. Sometimes there's other species, but duckweed is quite common. And we get several calls about algae on ponds, but there are times when it's actually not algae, it's duckweed. It's green, it's prolific, and it can easily be mistaken as algae. If you scoop it up in your hand and have a look, it's actually a tiny leaf with a root on it that floats on top of the water. It can fill your pond very, very quickly. It's more difficult to manage than algae, but it is possible to get it under control. Its abundance is due to lack of movement and a high amount of nutrients in the water. We recommend fine bubble aeration, pond clear, muck away, ecoboost, and pondi to treat these ponds with the duckweed. It may take a full season or even more to get it under control, but with that effort, you can actually get it under control. Geeks. Some people love them, others not so much. I have nothing personal against them, but in certain settings, they can be pretty hard on a pond. They tend to stir up the sediments at the bottom. They promote erosion on the shoreline, and they have a huge output of fecal matter. In fact, they can excrete up to 3 pounds in just one day. And that fecal matter can be very high in phosphorus, which increases the phosphorus in your water. It can affect the water chemistry. If they're in a pond that you want to swim in, then the E. coli levels become a concern for your safety as well. So what we prescribe is a beneficial bacteria that we sell that will consume the fecal matter, and aeration is also beneficial as it'll turn that body of water over and expose the water to the sun's UV light. And that actually can help with the pathogens in the water as well. This brings us to the next slide regarding the riparian zone. The riparian zone is the area surrounding the pond. It should consist of water-loving plants near the shoreline. And as you move up the bank, like wild grasses and perennials and shrubs are quite beneficial. And, you know, the wider the riparian zone, the better. These zones, that riparian zone, is important for capturing nutrients and sediments from runoff. They help to stabilize the bank, and they provide an excellent habitat to promote biodiversity around the pond as well. Lastly, it discourages geese from nesting in the area, especially if they're not desired to be there. They don't like the tall plant material, and it makes them feel unsafe, so they tend not to want to set up there for the summer. To help our clients using the experience that we've acquired over the years, we need to know some key details. So if you're going to call us to ask questions about your pond, there's a few things that, you know, that helps us to guide you. The first is the size of pond. And if you're not sure what size it is, but you can provide us with a Google location, we can actually measure it online. The other key is to know how deep the pond is. So we need to know that size of water body so that we can prescribe the appropriate treatments. We also want to know what's surrounding the area. What drains into the pond? Do you have livestock nearby? Because that can increase possibly the phosphorus in there, or grain fields, or maybe you have grasslands or bush. Is it spring fed? Do you have springs that feed that body of water? If you do, then maybe we don't have to apply different treatments or aeration in there. Maybe it's sufficient with what you have. What problems is it experiencing? So is it algae, aquatic weeds, odor, you know, things like that. Also, what are you using the pond for? And what are your desired outcomes? What are you looking for as an end goal? Once we have that information, then we can help to direct you. So let's touch on the products that I mentioned earlier. Pond Clear. Pond Clear works in the water column to reduce the nutrients and organics. It comes in a wettable soluble pack that you just toss into the water. It promotes clear water, and it's very safe for people and pets, fish, and livestock. Muck Away is a pelleted form of bacteria, and it's about the size of a mini marshmallow. The beauty of this product is it works exactly where you put it. So if you want to just target an area where maybe you're swimming and that's where you want to get rid of the weeds, then you can just do that. Or maybe you have a little dock on your dugout or something like that, and you want to just target around there, you can do that. Or you can treat the whole body of water. It works exactly where you place it. And it can consume anywhere from 6 inches to 12 inches of muck in just one season. And as I mentioned earlier, muck is where the aquatic weeds grow. And also that's kind of where your leeches will hang out as well. So if you get rid of that muck, it will result in reduced aquatic weeds and leeches. EcoBoost. So EcoBoost boosts the bacteria. It's basically a micronutrient for the bacteria. It's great, especially if you have phosphorus in the water, because it helps to bind it. For some of you, this may be your little secret key to success for your ponds, especially if you've been using the other treatments with limited success and you're just a little bit frustrated that you're not getting to that next level. This may be the product that you need, because it'll take out that phosphorus and allow you to get to those outcomes that you're looking for. So pondi, some of you might already be using pondi as it's fairly inexpensive. It is just one more tool that can be useful when combined with the other treatments. I find it works better if it's used in combination rather than just on its own. It basically it shades the water from the sun's UV light, which helps to slow down the aquatic growth that's in there, whether it's weeds or algae. And a lot, just like the other treatments that I mentioned, it's safe for people, pets, fish, and livestock. Okay, so this brings us to aeration. Aeration is key for almost every body of water. It increases the dissolved oxygen that speeds up the beneficial bacteria in the water. Just think of it as it's like providing Red Bull to the bacteria because it makes it work that much faster and much more effective. It also breaks up the thermocline. You know that temperature difference that you might sometimes feel if you're swimming, where it's really cold on the bottom and hot on the top, or warm on the top? That's a thermocline. And it's like an invisible barrier in your pond where maybe the dissolved oxygens at the top cannot penetrate through that barrier. And the gases that are kind of building up on the bottom can't penetrate and get out. So it kind of creates this invisible barrier where it's not mixing top to bottom. When you add a subsurface fine bubble aeration system, it actually mixes that entire body of water and oxygenates it from top to bottom, which is really helps to improve the health of the water. There are two types of aeration that we recommend, fine bubble subsurface aeration and floating fountains. So let's chat a little bit more about each of those. Fine bubble aeration is the most beneficial as it has a very high oxygen transfer rate compared to other systems on the market. The system we recommend is designed to entrain the water right from the very bottom of the pond, and in turn it delivers the dissolved oxygen right back down to the mud-water interface. This is really helpful, especially if you're wanting to reduce aquatic weeds and algae in the water. The dissolved oxygen is also critical for healthy fish. So if you have fish in there, they need that oxygen to thrive. And if you have fish in there, you also need to aerate the pond over the winter months to ensure their survival. If you have livestock, it's actually scientifically proven to improve the herd's health. It increases growth, reproduction, lactation, and so on. So aeration is a great tool and highly recommend it for many bodies of water. Floating fountains, they have their place and they can be very beneficial in some scenarios. They're very beautiful to look at and they create sound and movement, which is at times quite desirable. For aeration purposes though, it's best to be used in shallow water as it's not suited to fully aerate deeper water. You can use it in deeper water, but you're not going to actually aerate that entire body of water with that system because it's only drawing the water from just a small area around the intake. If you have a body of water that's under 5 feet deep or under, then a floating fountain might be suitable. Might be a suitable source of aeration for that body of water. So now I would like to show you some projects that we physically work on. Our staff assesses and applies treatments to these private and municipal ponds in and around the Winnipeg area. And so I just wanted to show you some of those. This one here is a city retention pond, and it was suffering from a really bad algal bloom, and we had it cleaned up, I think about 3 weeks or so. We had it turned around. This one here is duckweed, and that pond took about a season and a half to kind of get it in control. So again, lots of aeration and the beneficial bacteria to get that nutrient level down. It's another algal bloom. And this one had aquatic weeds and some growth on top as well. Another algal bloom. Duckweed. This is another duckweed pond. And this one here is Plum Coulee, Manitoba. It's a community swim pond that they have right in the center of their community. They have a little campground there. And I believe it was about 2014, they contacted us. They were having trouble with the pond. People didn't want to use it. It was kind of not so desirable to be in. And they started to, they put in our aeration and started with our treatments. And now people don't complain about it at all. They're super happy. They said at times there's 250 people on that beach. It's very busy and a very popular place for people to go and enjoy throughout the summer months. This one here is in Reston, Manitoba. This pond here actually was a slough that was dredged out and relined with sand and gravel, and to create this beautiful little swimming hole in their community. And they have our treatments in there as well, our aeration. They also have a fountain and some beneficial bacteria, and the water is beautiful, and they had tons of people there last year. So, and I'm sure they're looking forward to another season ahead. So I hope that you found that this information that I provided to you today was helpful in diagnosing your pond. But you know, if you have questions about it and you would like us to give you a hand with that, I'm more than happy to do so. You can reach us at 877-745-6898 or email me at info@cleanwaterpro.ca. And if you want to check out some of those products that we talked about, our online store is www.pondsupply.ca. And so that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you for joining me today, and stay well, everybody. Happy Easter.